Good afternoon, and welcome to part 6 of my embroidery slow stitching journal, Stitch Along. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me this afternoon, and I hope that those of you that are stitching along in this series are having an awesome time learning some embroidery stitches and having fun laying out pages in your slow stitching journal. This afternoon, I'm going to be teaching 4 more embroidery stitches and also sharing a couple page layouts just for inspiration. We are catching up this week, and the stitches for this week are going to be the blanket stitch, the straight stitch, bullion stitch, and the sheath stitch. So we are getting into some stitches that are just a little bit harder, take a little bit more concentration and thought than as we started out in. So um, also, I hope that you also will continue doing your page layouts, basting them, and if you haven't already, starting your decorative embroidery stitches and embellishments on those pages. And please also feel free to share your progress in our private Facebook group to help inspire others. Also, don't forget our Zoom Stitch Days on Thursdays and Saturdays. The sign-in information is always posted in the Facebook group the day before or the morning of. So let's get on with our stitches and showing some pages for inspiration today. And since I have this laying here, I'll go ahead and show just a couple stitches. Yeah, we're going to show stitches also, but pages for inspiration. Let me see, what do we have? We do have this one that is actually stitched and finished. If you're saw the What's Stitching in the Cottage week in review and mail haul on Sunday, then you have already seen some of these. But for those of you that may not have seen that, we'll share just a couple. So this is one. It has the doily made into a flower. We have some button embellishments on it. We have some curved stitching up here. We have circular stitching here, and we've just kind of followed the square concentrically going inside that. And on the part that is the print here, we have done some regular just running stitches going up and down, and then also crosswise under the larger spaces spaced between the words on that. And that is about all here. We did a little bit of diagonal running stitches, and I just couched the zigzag, not zigzag, rickrack down on here. So that is one of the pages. Let me see what else we have. Pop that over. And this is the middle layout. You can only see one of those at a time. I'll scoot that over in a minute, but we are going to be embroidering these birds, which I did in the crayon color tinting technique on here. So I will be putting SF 101 on the back of that and embroidering that before it is attached to the page here. And just added a little bit of trim and yo-yo up there. That will be plenty for that page, and we don't need to share that other one. Let's see what else we can find here. We're stuck on a pin. On a pin that has come through there. There we go. Now we can turn it. I think you've seen that one before, so we'll go on and see what else we have Here I just last night, this page was looking pretty plain. I knew I needed to add some embellishment of some kind on there. There's going to be some embroidery added on this piece here. That is a piece of Onnesberg, which is a type of fabric that has a weave in it. So there will be some embroidery work added on that. And I just crocheted this doily last night and made it in the pink and smaller so that I knew it would fit on one of these pages. Probably be adding some other things along to this one, but that gives you some ideas and inspiration as well. Another one that will be embroidered there, also the crayon color tinting technique. And that are is some of the pages, so you have some inspiration going on into this coming week. And we will lay that out of the way, and we will get right on now to the stitches that I will be teaching this week. And the first is the blanket stitch. Sometimes others also refer to it as a buttonhole stitch, but it is found on page 6 in your Hand Embroidery Stitches at a Glance handbook. It is the one that we are using for this stitch along to follow along in. You don't have to have that. You can use any embroidery reference book that you have, but the page numbers that I'm giving do refer to this little handout. And so we will get on with that. And you will find that in the book, they show this stitch upside down from what I do it. Because it is always a edging, I am going to show it the way that most people that I know do the stitch instead. So if that confuses you, just turn your book upside down and I think you will get the gist of the way that I am doing that instead. So to do that, we are first going to come up. Oops, let me adjust the camera. Let me zoom in a little first, so we get closer here. And I better move it up just a little, but I think you'll be able to see that. Let me see if there we go. Okay. And so we are coming up, and this is the way that I start so that it anchors my very first stitch down. But I come up right at the top, which would be the edge of whatever you are outlining with your blanket stitch, and go down at the bottom of that first stitch, and then I come up right on the other side of where I originally started, right next to it. And that is going to anchor our first stitch so that we don't have that funny little floppy first part coming over. And you are going to keep your thread above your work as you do this. I'm going to try and find a way to get my hand in here that I can do this and you will still be able to see. But you are working with your stitch. Okay, I may have just confused myself. What did I want to do? I have to think. I may be starting this, starting my stitch wrong. Let me. Okay. Have to think. I want to come down at the bottom. Okay. Had to think there for a minute. Always have to refresh the memory on how it's doing. And you are going to come up, leaving your yarn at the back of your needle. And that is how you do the first stitch. And then you will be going over and down, and you will just continue doing your blanket stitch that way, which I am confusing myself totally today, and I do not know why, because that is not correct. Let me get my thread up here to where it's supposed to be. Let me think of what I am doing, because I am doing something. I can't find my thread back here because it's on top. Okay, pull that tight. All righty, let me think here, because I have started wrong. So we are going to correct this. I'm going to try and figure out how I'm going to do that. I'm going to go back to the back here. And I'm going to think. Okay. And I cannot think for some reason. See, this happens. My mind is not working, and I am sorry. But I want to come up from the bottom. Okay, I'm going to try something, because it should just be coming like this. All right, we've got it now. Sorry about that. I was doing it right to begin with and thought I was doing it wrong. So started out, we're at the first, we're going to go over. We're actually going to go down. We are keeping our thread above. We're going to the bottom, coming up at the top of the edge of what we are outlining, which is our line there. And we are pulling that through and keeping the thread above. It is coming through that. Then we are going down again, and you want to try and keep your spacing consistent when you are doing this. Sorry for the confusion. See, even the teacher has to think sometimes. But, and we are just continuing across that way. You're always ending, keeping your thread above your needle, going down at the bottom, about a 1/4 inch away, coming up at the top. Thread is underneath your needle. Pull that up, catching the loop. Oops, sorry, hit the camera. Don't pull that too tight. And you just go down at the bottom again, up at the top, and continue across whatever it is that you are putting that edge stitch on. Blanket stitch is usually an edge stitch. Usually, a lot of times, it's used a lot in wool embroidery or wool applique. We'll do a small blanket stitch around the edge of your wool. Just going down that 1/4 inch apart, coming up at the top, keeping the length and width of our stitches consistent. Down at the bottom, up at the top, which that would be the edge of your wool or whatever it is, the line, whatever you are following along at. Always keeping the thread underneath your needle and just pulling that taut. Do not make it tight, or it's going to pull your stitches and your fabric. And we don't want that to, oops, our end of our thread out of the way there. We need to scoot over a little here. I'm getting a little close to the edge. But you just kind of hold that thread up out of the way with your thumb. Come back down at the bottom. Up on our line. Thread is underneath the needle. And just continue on all the way across that way. It's a fun stitch to do. It's just sometimes, and like I did, you forget how to start it. And that's why it's always a good idea to have your little handy reference handbook ready. So when you forget, you can check and see, what is it I forgot and am doing wrong? Or you can just confuse yourself like I did. You can be doing it right and think, that doesn't look right. I'm doing something wrong. And I do this stitch all the time. So I don't know why I was confused, but I was. And now we're going to be doing the last stitch. So I'll show you how you end that. You're just going to, because you need to go to the back, but you need to hold that stitch. So you're just going to go right down, right beside on the other side of the straight part of the stitch where you came to finish that stitch off. And then you can fasten your thread off on the back. Just go under a few of your stitches. Whip it back through a couple the other way, and you know that it's secure. You can cut that close right off. Okay, and that is your blanket stitch. That is how it will look. So our next stitch is the straight stitch, which is an easy one, and that is on page 60 of your handbook. And we need to get over here where we have that one to do for our example. So a straight stitch, oops, where are we? Clear over here. Okay, there we are. A straight stitch is just going to be following a pattern that is just using some straight stitches. Sometimes it looks a lot like a running stitch, but they may be smaller stitches, farther apart or closer together sometimes than what a running stitch is, and you do each individual stitch when it is like that, and that's why it is a straight stitch. Or you can be doing some decorative, but it's all with just doing a straight stitch. And I will show you that. Now let me see where my longer thread is, and we're going to do the easy ones up here first. So you're just going to, if these were tiny little stitches close together where you couldn't take your, these are, big, all I would have to do is just go from here underneath and come up at this one, much like you were doing a running stitch. But we're going to pretend like they are smaller and closer together, and we can't do that with our needle. So you would go straight down, just one straight stitch, and pull that all the way through. And then you would come back up from the back at the beginning of your other stitch. And go back down. But because I can go straight across there, I'm just going to continue on doing this the easier way. which is just going from stitch to stitch on this. But that is the easy part of doing a straight stitch. Do this last one, and then we are going to come down and show you how you can get decorative with doing a straight stitch. Okay, so there we have a line of just plain regular straight stitches. And now we are going to do this kind of like a snowflake, whatever you want to refer to it as, but these are all straight stitches. So we are going to start by coming up right in the center of that. And I'm over in this one right here. So we're coming up right in the center. And I'm just going to do a straight stitch right up here. And the back, I'm going to come up so I am ready to do my next straight stitch. So you are pulling that through, and you can choose any of the other ones to do. I'm going to do the larger diagonal ones first, and then you're going to go right back down in that middle. I'm going to come over here and do this straight one that is out halfway through the middle. This is just done with regular plain straight stitches. I'm going to do this diagonal one down here. Just working our way around, just doing very easy, simple, straight stitches. Oops, sorry. Let me get more in the view there for you. And now I'm going to come down and catch the other one that's straight down the middle. Always going right back to our middle. I'm not always going right in, where I came up with those other stitches, but I have to turn this so I can work around the rest of it. Well, as long as we get it the correct direction here. Now my hand's going to be in the way, but I'm coming down and catching this one. You can see how I'm just working my way around, doing just doing an X on top of an X on top of an X on top of an X is all we are doing to do this stitch. And it's an awkward way to come and get that other. So I'm going to come from underneath now. And I have to look to find where is the end of my stitch. Just a little further out. Going right back to the middle. Now, because I'm working on the opposite side and can't take my hand from where I'm at and switch, I am coming out and more doing those stitches individually instead of swooping under there and getting that at the same time. And we're going to get this there where you can see. And this is the last of the big diagonal. And now we've got little diagonal ones in between the stitches that we just did. So we're going to catch all of those now. You're going to have a lot of stitches that end up in the middle of that stitch. So you just want to be careful and kind of go close, but not always every time exactly in the same spot, or you may wear a hole in your fabric. You don't want to do that. No, just going in between all of those that we just did. We're going to have a cute, what I would refer to as a snowflake, a star, a flower, if you wanted it to be on the end of a stem. You could do that using straight stitch also. But this is a pretty stitch that looks like it could be complicated, and it's actually very easy. And you will find that it gets a little thick in that middle, so as you're getting towards the end, maybe just a little bit harder to pull your needle through. But if you're just slow and steady, it will go through there. We've got one more stitch after this one. Right here, the middle of that one. And there you have your, trying to hold it so you can see the snowflake effect that you get in doing that stitch. And I'm just going to come through the back again on here a couple times. And cut my thread. Right. Now we are going to do our next stitch, which is a little bit more difficult stitch, and that is the bullion stitch. You will see that it is used, and this is only a partial rose, did not finish that, but it is used a lot in making roses, going circular, but giving a little dimension to stuff, to things, because you will see that these stitches actually kind of curve and are not flat on the fabric. But we are going to do that now, but I'm going to make sure I have a knot in the bottom of my thread first. Don't want to pull that right straight through, especially not on this stitch. But you are going to start this stitch by coming up at where you want your stitch to actually begin. So you're coming up at, let's say, A, and then you're going to go down the width of your stitch at B, and keeping your thread below the needle, you're going to come back up, right, not right in the very same hole, but right next to where you came up the first time. And you are going to pull your needle through to the end of the eye of the needle, but don't bring it all the way through the fabric. And then you are going to take the end of your thread here, and you are going to wrap that around your needle a number of times that the stitches will fill the space that you have that is from the beginning there, right there, the space from where your needle goes in and where it comes out. So we are going to wrap that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to push those down and look, do a few more, 7, 8, And we're going to go ahead and do 10, just to make sure that we have enough. So you've got those 10 wraps on your needle. This is not like a French knot. You're going to hold that with your thumb and index finger, and you are going to push your needle forward slowly. I stick it down on the surface of my table, whatever I'm working on. And because I am using a thicker needle, of course, it's going to slide on my fingers right now. Let me see if this will help me. Well, I can't get it. We're going to put this on the end of my finger and see if that'll help me a little in pulling my needle. But you don't want to let go of this in the meantime. And it's not going to. Okay. Get some friction here. Just a second. There we go. Just had to give it a good yank, and you're going to slowly pull that thread. You're going to, when it gets to where it's almost at the top, you see how it makes a little V there. That is the end of your thread. You want to lay your stitch over, hold that, and pull so that thread comes down to the surface of your fabric. And your stitch, all your little wraps are right there. And then you are going to come right down, right next to where you came up. See that? You're going to pull that all the way to the back. And there you have your bullion stitch. And you can see it's a little curved, and it stands up just a little bit. It's not totally flat to your fabric. We're going to do that again. We're going to come up right at this point here where we want our stitch to begin. We're going to go down the width that we want our stitch to be. We're going to go right about there. Always remember to keep that thread at the bottom of your needle. Coming up right above where you put your needle in to begin. Again, taking it to the end of the eye of the needle. You're going to hold that. You're going to take your thread and you're going to wrap it around your needle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I know that it's about the same, so I'm doing 10 wraps again. I'm holding that with my finger until I get my thumb and forefinger over there. And now I'm going to push down, and as I do, I'm sliding those stitches down. And you are making sure that your needle and working thread comes through all of those stitches. You kind of have to watch, because when you'll find that thread on the bottom is always right there. See that? And that is when you want to take and hold that, pull it a little tighter, because you have to get that thread to come through, but it's not going to until you bring that stitch down and hold it and pull that tight, and that will lay it down. And then you go right down, pull that through, and there you have another bullion stitch. You can see you can move them with your finger. Make little curves. It'll go on whatever that you do. We will do one more here. We're coming up at the beginning, going back to where we want the width of our stitch to be. Bringing our needle up, keeping the thread on the bottom, bringing our needle up right above where we went. Oops, and I just pulled it all away. You don't want to do that. You can pull that back. We'll be okay. Just hold that. And now we're going to wrap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we're going to pull our needle through, straighten our fabric out. And we will always have that little thread coming up there like a V. It's when you pull it down, hold on to those wraps until it gets down flat to your fabric. See that? Flat now. And that's when you, if you need to adjust your stitch in any way, that's when you adjust it before you go ahead. Put your needle down at the end of that and pull it all the way back to the back. Oops, sorry. And there you have your bullion stitch again. And that is exactly how you do these. You're just putting your stitch where you want it to begin and end and wrapping it and doing the same as these. You're just doing multiples and just keep going around. And that's how you end up with the start of making a rose, which that middle's a little bit big, started with the circle, a little large on that. You can always fill that up with French knots or whatever, or go in and add a couple extra bullion stitches in there. But that is how you do the bullion stitch, which, like I said, is one of the more advanced stitches that you will find that you do. And I'm gonna read this through. We've got one more stitch to do. If I didn't tell you what page that is on page 10. I'm sorry. I think I neglected to let you know which page that was on. And our last stitch is the sheath stitch. It is not a difficult one, but I do need more thread. So we're going to have to thread the needle. We don't have enough. So we'll get some. Okay, find where I put my needle threader. Just doing a simple quilter's knot. That's what I always use. Whoops. We went right off the end without getting a knot on it. Every once in a while that happens. We will try that again. There we go. We got it that time. So for the sheath stitch, which is on page 52 of your book, I want to make sure that I do start this off correctly. We've got our 4 lines right here that I'm going to be using. You don't have to have them marked. This is just easier for teaching purposes, but you do want to keep them consistent in length and width apart. But we're going to start by coming up at the bottom of our first stitch, pulling that all the way through. And then we are going to go thread over there out of the way. We're going to go to the top of that one, and then we are going to come up at the bottom of the next one. And we're just going to continue across that way to do our 4 basically straight stitches is what we are laying down to start off with. We're going at the top, coming up at the bottom of the next stitch. Keeping our thread out of the out of the way as we pull that. And keep in mind, I am working with, I don't know what this actually measures, but I am working on a huge piece of fabric here because I have this grid enlarged and all on one piece of cloth. So it is rather large. So I'm having to hold a lot of fabric out of the way. Now on this last one, when we're at the top, we are going to have a stitch going through the middle of that. And we're going to divide that in half. So we are coming up after our second stitch, right next to that, and in the middle. You can see that right there. We're halfway down and coming on the right side of our second straight stitch. We're going to pull through. We've got all four there now, and now we are going to go underneath without catching any of the fabric on those first two stitches there. And we are going to go straight over, and we are going to go all the way through all four of them again. And we are going to pull that together as we do that, gathering it in the middle. So you've actually gone around it twice, and you are going to anchor that down and pull that all the way through, and then you will tighten that, and that makes your sheath stitch, is what that is called. Kind of looks like a haystack is what it looks like to me, or several stalks of corn gathered together, wheat in a bundle, that type of thing. But we can go over here, and again we are going to start at the bottom of our first stitch, at the bottom there, come up, go down at the top, and we're going to come up at the bottom of our next one. That all the way through, take it up to the top. But to the bottom of the next one. Top, bottom of the fourth one. This time when we go to the top, we're going to come to that middle, right halfway down, and right to the right side of our, whoops, don't get your thread in it, of that second stitch. That's where we are coming up. Or wherever you want it to be, to where you are gathering your stitch. If you see in your little handout, it shows you can do it at the top or the bottom, make it look different. You can attach several of them together, but we did that first one. Now we're going to go underneath without catching any of the fabric, all the way under all four of them again. And we're going to pull it tight this time. You can hold that with your thumb if you need to. And you're going to go down on the outside of that so that it holds that all together. And there is the sheath stitch again. Very, very easy one to do. And I am just going to fasten that off real quickly on the back. Red. There is your sheath. Sheath. That's hard to say. Sheath stitch. So we learned the sheath stitch, which is on page 52. The bullion stitch, which is on page, get farther over, sorry, on page 10. The most difficult one I would say that we have done today. And then we have our straight stitch that we did, which can look like it's difficult, but it was all done just with plain little straight stitches like we did up here. And then we also did the blanket stitch, which you see that sometimes even the teacher can get confused in the beginning, but just stick with it. You'll remember how to do it. And if you have to take it out and start over, that's okay too. But sometimes it just takes a little bit of thinking on how do I start that stitch? And so there you have all of the stitches for part 6 of our My Embroidery Slow Stitching Journal Stitch Along. This is the catch up week, and I am trying to stay all caught up. I'm going to fold this up, lay that down. Just put it right there on those. But I am going to be pre-recording, scheduling the premieres for the last, let me see, I think we have nine total parts to this. So this is 6, we have 7, 8, and 9 left to go. I'm going to get those all pre-recorded and scheduled because for those of you that aren't aware, there are some medical issues going on with my husband right now. We have some more appointments. He is probably going to be having surgery, so I don't know what my availability is going to be so that we do not get behind on this. And those of you that are following along, I will have the videos done and scheduled for their regular times so that if something comes up and I'm not able to be here, that will still show as the premiere and that will be there for you to watch. And the PDFs will also be in the Facebook group. So part 7, so that we catch up into where we are supposed to be this week, will come out as a premiere on Thursday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then we will be back on schedule, and the others will be on Tuesdays all the way through part 9, which should end the first Tuesday in July, I do believe. So you will be able to go to the Facebook group, and the information for that will be in the description box. For those of you that may not be members, I did open the membership back up, so you can find the link for that and request to become a member. You do have to answer the questions, or you will be declined in your request for membership. So there are a few questions to answer, and you do need to answer those. So that will be in the description box of this video. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments. I am usually pretty quick at responding to all the comments, so you shouldn't have to wait too long if you have a question for me to get back to you. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate all of you so very, very much. And I hope that you are enjoying this stitch along. And I can't wait to see some of you share some of your work in the Facebook group so we can all see it and we can be inspired by your work as well. Thank you, everyone. Until Thursday, happy stitching. And remember, in the meantime, I can keep you in stitches. Bye-bye, everyone.